clicked. Thank you. We missed all that. You need to repeat it all. I will.
It was so good.
Seriously or no? Because that's
No, seriously.
Okay.
Well, it's up to you. I don't want to disturb you. It's your class, but
No.
it was so wonderful.
I'm not going to do it.
Okay, no, sorry. That's okay because we
In
are all here and we are.
In the eternal mood of being unsubmissive, I'm not going to repeat it. Okay, sorry. All right, I'm working on. I'm trying to be submissive, but anyway, all right. Okay, so we're on text number 19. We're going to try that. Okay. Gam paratyam meja vivikta vritti. Gam paryatam medha vivikta vritti. Gam paryatam medha vivikta vritti. Gam paryatam medha vivikta vritti.
Gam paryatam medha vivikta vritti.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
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 Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani.
Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita, oh sorry, Vratani Sherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Sherer Harito Shanani.
Would you like to chant?
Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Nanda Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Vratani Sherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Sherer Harito Shanani.
Gamparyatam medya vivikta.
Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani. That was very good. You did very good on that. Gamparyatam medya vivikta vritti.
Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Sada Pluto da Shayano Vaduta.
Alakshita Swara Vaduta Vesho.
Alakshita Svar Avaduta Vesho.
Vratan Chere Harito Shanani.
Vratani Cherer Harito Shanani. Any other brave souls? Okay, no pressure, just asking. Okay, okay, just for those newcomers on cyberspace, we're on chapter 1 of the 3rd canto, text number 19. We're doing the word for word right now. Gam, earth. Paryatam, traversing. Medya, pure. Vivikta vritti,
Vivekta vritti,
independent occupation for living.
independent occupation for living.
Sada,
Sada,
always.
always.
Apluta,
Apluta,
sanctified.
sanctified.
Adha,
Adha,
on the earth.
on the earth.
Shayana,
Shayana,
lying.
lying.
Avaduta,
Avaduta,
without dressing of the hair, etc.
without dressing of the hair, etc.
Alakshita,
Alakshita,
without being seen.
without being seen.
Svai,
Svai,
alone.
alone.
Avaduta Vesha,
Avaduta Vesha,
dressed like a mendicant.
dressed like a mendicant.
Fratani,
Matani,
vows.
vows.
Chere,
Chere,
performed.
performed.
Harito Shanani,
Harito Shanani,
that pleased the Lord.
that pleased the Lord.
Harito Shanani,
Harito Shanani,
that pleased the Lord.
that pleased the Lord.
Harito Shanani,
Harito Shanani,
that pleased the Lord.
that pleased the Lord.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. While so traversing the earth, he, that means Vidura, but we'll get to that, okay. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. What's the Sanskrit? To please the Supreme Lord Hari. Okay, that's why we repeated it. Yes, Harito Shanani, good. So he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus, he was always unseen by his various relatives. Interesting, isn't it? I wonder what it all means. Let's read it together, okay? While so traversing the earth, everybody together.
While so traversing the earth,
he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places. And although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie, thus he was always unseen by his various relatives. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. What's the Sanskrit? Not you, another person.
Harito Shanani.
Good, okay. Well, while traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. There's no need to depend on social formalities or occupation or dress. One should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Lord. Thus, sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. Wow. Just a few sentences, and it's so profound. So I'll say my prayer again and explain it a little bit. Om Agina Timinandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksur Umilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I was born in the darkness of ignorance, just like, I just thought, oh, this is me. This is who I am. I'm born in Massachusetts. I'm this, I'm that. I'm so old. I got so many sisters. This is my father and mother, and this is my country, and this is who I am. Not so. That's ignorance. That's just the external. The real me is inside. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that until Srila Prabhupada, who has spent so much time and effort of his life translating these books. And I somehow or other, by causeless mercy, received the books that, although I was happy being unhappy in my bodily concept of life, I was thinking that was life and there was no other alternative. My eyes were shut to reality. These books, they force open your eyes to see another reality beyond the immediate, what the eyes see, the table, the chairs, the this, the people, the that. Beyond that, so that debt that we have to the spiritual master, that's not an easy debt to pay back. but we pay it back with our continuous attempt to please the Supreme Lord Hari Toshan, or Hari Toshan, to try to attempt to please the Supreme Lord on behalf of our spiritual master through his teachings to us. That's how we pay back that debt, which is not easy to pay back. Never can be paid back in full, because what I was saying pre-recording was that debt's eternal, because that's what I was saying, that the information that Srila Prabhupada has given us in this book has changed the whole course of our lives, eternally. Even if one takes it up very seriously, or even very casually, or appears not to take up the information in this book right away, still, because it's transcendental sound vibration, it has its effect, and it has changed our life, and it will continue to change our life. And that's where the connection is with the spiritual master. It's not a question of being physically present with him. That may happen or may not happen. That's, but by being present with him through the sound vibration that he's presented to us, that's what's changing the course of our lives and of the lives of others. So this chapter is entitled Questions by Vidura. So as a overview, so Vidura was a great sage. He was transcendentally advanced. He was advanced. He wasn't like in ignorance of his self-identity, but he was in a certain circumstance with his family circumstance that it got to a point that was so uncomfortable for him in that family circumstance. And he, at one particular pivotal incident, or you could even say the straw that broke the camel's back, his determination, was his brother's sons were so hell-bent on impious acts. They were so wanting to exploit the resources of material nature and gain a kingdom for themselves, that they wouldn't stop at murder, they wouldn't stop at thievery, they didn't stop at exploiting in any way. And Vidura's position in that palace, in the palace, was that he was always trying to give advice to his brother. Don't let him do that. Guide him properly. And somehow or other, the brother had a contaminated heart, and he couldn't stop him because he didn't really want to stop him, because he also wanted them to take over the kingdom. So political intrigue was the bottom line. And so at one particular point, the political intrigue got so painful and so prominent for Vidura. It was so prominent in Vidura's mind that I'm not going to be able to change anything here. I'm out of here. Then he left. And that's what's talking about. Then he left the palace. And what did he do? Well, he didn't go look for a job someplace else or this or that or whatever. He decided to go on pilgrimage. I need to purify my heart and my consciousness. So this is a story that took place thousands and thousands of years ago, when society in general was more inclined to spiritual advancement, or at least, at the very, very least, they were aware that there's another life than this temporary material life. There's another plane of existence. There's a spiritual plane of existence. They were aware of the difference between the bodily dress and the eternal spirit soul, which is the batteries of this body. We have our body and it's functioning and this and that, but very basic question is, what's the difference between a live body and a dead body? It's not a question of chemicals. It's not a question of this or that, because if it was a question of chemicals, they would have put the chemicals back in and the body would come alive. It's a question of the spirit soul which animates the body. When that's not present in the body, it's just a lump of matter. So back to society thousands and thousands of years ago, the whole society was structured in such a way that people could comfortably make progress in spiritual life. As anybody who's older than 2 years old knows, not everybody's on the same page as far as consciousness goes. There's so much. In fact, as I was coming here, I came the back way to Malini's house, and I happened to come down this. It's a road that doesn't have any houses on it, So a beautiful road, full of trash, full of, garbage. Because why? Because people's consciousnesses are a different place. There is a dump. You can bring your garbage to the dump, but there is that road there. And if nobody sees you, you think, oh yeah, I got away with that quick. But anyway, sorry to get distracted, but I got distracted on that road. But it is because people's consciousnesses are in different places. So, but from where your consciousness is at, if I say to you all, that, okay, what you really need to do is give up your house and your home and go live in the forest and just chant Hare Krishna and just meditate on the Supreme Lord, and that's what you're supposed to do. And if you can't do that, then you're nonsense. Well, like, hello. Like, it's a little, unreasonable. So back to my point that I'm struggling to make. Society was structured back in the past so that people could comfortably make progress in spiritual life from where they're at. Okay, that's important. Comfortably make progress. So there's different stages, whatever. But ultimately, the goal is to be able to fix your mind on the Supreme Lord and please him. Hari Toshani, please him by your activities and your consciousness, etc. So Vidura, when he left the palace, he decided, I'm going to go on a pilgrim's progress and walk. And of course, it was walking because that was the means and mode of transportation, unless you could hitch a ride on a chariot or a bullock cart. The different places. So he went to various places of holy places where sacred events had taken place, and he took his bath there. Interesting, huh? It's all of these things that are very traditional in ancient culture are like so foreign in this day and age. Bath, what's so special about taking a bath? I take a bath once a week, whether I need it or not, Sorry, that was a joke. But taking a bath with sacred water, it not only cleanses the mind, but it also purifies the consciousness. So that's one of the processes, purifying the consciousness. And then to go to a sacred place where there special events or holy events took place, and to take a bath, that's very good. But more important is to go to hear from the people who live in that area that have dedicated their life to spiritual advancement, and hear from them. That process of hearing is so important. So that's what Vidura was doing. And so when he went on his sacred pilgrimage, he wasn't concerned of which clothes am I going to bring with me? And how am I going to bring my sleeping bag too? And my, portable stove so I can get the food that I want. No, he just went completely dependent on the goodwill of the Lord. That's a big step. And that's why it's so amazing. It's called Avadutta. The word Avadutta came twice in this verse. Once talked about hairdressing. He didn't, in those days, you could tell a person, and even these days you can, but anyway, in those days particularly and specifically, you could tell where a person was at in society by how he dressed. The rich people obviously had more nicer clothing, and they also used to have ornaments and turbans, let's say, with, jewels and this and that and whatever. So when it refers to him without caring for his hair, that's what that reference is. He didn't have to get his cruise line outfits because he wasn't going on a cruise. And he didn't consider any of that. He just went. And just like St. Francis taught us, one of those teachings is, look at the birds. They're not worried about what they're going to eat, or even stockpiling the worms. They don't. Only there's some insects that like to stockpile, but anyway, but just a little bit, Anyway, the wasp. Yeah.
That's the character.
The mud wasp. That's the mud wasp. And you get those little things around here. Yeah. Yeah. That's the characteristic of the wasp. So, so he wasn't, St. Francis, he said, look at the birds. They're not concerned about their clothing. They're just like even now in this cold snap that we're having here, you see that the animals have gradually, like the cows, their fur has gradually, their fur coat has gotten thicker for the winter. It's a normal thing. And then in the spring, then there'll be, what are you doing? Shaking them. Yeah. Brushing them, sorry. When you're brushing them, that big Sanskrit word, I forgot it. Brushing, all the hair comes off in gobs, but Krishna's he's taking care of everyone. Where was I reading? Third canto. I'm also reading in the third canto. I'm a little further along in the 6th chapter. So somewhere between here and the 6th chapter, Srila Prabhupada was talking about the artificial or the understanding of scarcity, that there's a food problem in the world because there's overpopulation, and therefore some people over here are starving and over there are starving. Prabhupada said there's no food problem in the world. He said when the living entity is born, there's already a plan for his maintenance. There's already a plan there. And the Lord being the Om Purnam Adaha Purnaminam, the original source and complete, he's made a complete arrangement for all the living entities in this world. But due to human administrative mismanagement, we've hoarded, stockpiles, and therefore not allowed the distribution to go equally to everybody, because if it goes equally to everybody, then how am I going to make my money on that? And so, and interestingly enough, he says that industrialization of agriculture, he said, is the source of all the problems. Interesting. Okay, I won't get too distracted on that one. But anyway, so I'll try not to get too distracted. So Vidura, he's going on his pilgrimage. He left everything. He didn't make a plan. He didn't bring a backpack. He left everything and he went off.
No backpack?
No backpack. No water bottle.
Smartphone?
Huh?
No smartphone?
No smartphone. No,
GPS?
he didn't only
No
go to,
GPS?
he didn't go to places only where there was internet connection either. He didn't go there either. But anyway, yeah, it's quite amazing, even I go to Gainesville and I bring my water bottle, and I bring my this, and I bring my that, and I think that, and then maybe it's too hot in the store, maybe too cold, and you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God. Anyway. So he's on his pilgrimage, he's going here, and because he's independent like that, because he's not dressed like he used to be dressed, and et cetera, nobody recognizes him, because he actually was quite famous. And but aside from all that, his consciousness was, let me do things that are pleasing to the Supreme Lord Hari. Sanskrit? Pleasing to Lord Hari?
Hari Toshanani?
Yeah, good. Yes, pleasing to the Supreme Lord. Let me, with my consciousness, try to please the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada says that in the purport, the very first sentence, the first and foremost duty of a pilgrim. And you know what? We're all pilgrims. The first and foremost duty of a pilgrim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. And that's our position, and some of us perhaps are a tad more aware of it, and others might not be aware of it. But the more one is aware that my goal in life, or my duty, and even if it's in a selfish motive, the only way I'm really going to be happy is if I try to please the Lord. That even if I'm motivated by that selfish desire, because I want to be happy, because I'm tired of suffering and I'm tired of this, it's okay. It's good. It's something. It's a step in that direction, and people understand a different, just like if your journey is to walk from here to California, that's a mighty undertaking. And you might be thinking, wow, that's going to take me, I don't know how long it would take you, months or something, and who knows if it's even possible, with all the roadblocks and whatever. Okay, aside from that. Okay, so if you're thinking of the end of the journey and how long it's going to take you there, that's kind of overwhelming, but you just start with the first step. You're starting with the first step. Let me just, make my endeavor. So people, that was my point that I almost forgot. The people are on different stages of realization at different points in their life. So they might have a very simplistic understanding of God or the Almighty or the Lord or the force behind everything. Okay, good. Then connect with that and make progress. So fortunately, Srila Prabhupada or Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the highest level of God realization. He's not just the force in nature. He is, but not just. He's not just a white light, the source of white light that is, energizing the whole universe. He is, but not just that. More than that, Srimad Bhagavatam explains to us, he's in our heart. In every individual's heart, the Lord is there. And so then we think, oh yeah, he's in the heart of every human being, which is true, but he's not just in the heart of every living being. He's in the grass too, because the grass has a spirit soul also. The tree has a spirit soul. Every living entity has a soul inside it. And Krishna, through his in expansion as the super soul, Paramatma, it's called in Sanskrit, he's in the heart of every living entity. And therefore, we're encouraged over and over again to try to remember that in our dealings. If I could only remember that, I've heard it innumerable times, and every time I read it and hear it, I think, yes, I'm really going to practice that. And then I get provoked and say something nasty or angry or whatever. And then I have to go back and try again, But if we could remember that, we're encouraged over and over again to remember the Lord's in the heart of every living entity. So therefore, that has a big implication in our life, an overarching implication in our life. Like if the Lord's in the heart of every living being, then why would I want to cause anyone unnecessary pain? And so then you take that to your kitchen table, then why would I want to harm animals, to eat them for the sensual perception of the taste, with no conscious understanding of what it is that I'm tasting and how that taste got there and what bodily part that taste came from whose body, and all the pain that caused by it. It has such an implication in our lives, basic information like that. So, yeah. So anyway, in the purport, Prabhupada continues, he's only got about like 4 sentences here. He says, while traveling as a pilgrim, one should not be worried about pleasing society. So that's an interesting statement too, that also has a lot of things behind it. Oftentimes we get socially obligated, to family members, to friends and this and that, and we get, entangled in various repercussions of that obligation. But at this particular stage that Vidura is undertaking, he's gone beyond that. He went through his younger life and did his obligation to his family and his work and everything. And now he's at this, what you call the end stage, the sannyas. I'm renouncing it all, no more, that I'm going to be subjected to that obligation. And now my only obligation is going to be to make spiritual advancement or to please the Supreme Lord Hari Toshani. So he was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in the holy places. And although he was in the dress of a mendicant and wasn't all dressed in a socially acceptable way, he was always, because of that, he managed to traverse an area, because he was involved in, previously, he was involved in politics, and not only just politics, but he was in the king's palace. So people knew him, but they didn't see him there. So Prabhupada says, one should remain always absorbed in the functions of pleasing the Supreme Lord. So one practical way that we can understand that, one should remain always absorbed in the function of pleasing the Supreme Lord. What does that mean, the function of pleasing the Supreme Lord? Yeah, so we're going to talk about that a little bit right now. So what, for practically speaking in our lives, how we apply it is we have this process that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Rising early in the morning, focusing in on the holy sound vibration of Krishna's holy name, singing prayers of glorification to the spiritual master, and hearing from this Vedic literature. These are very simple, basic ways that we can connect with things or functions or activities that please the Supreme Lord. And so we have, it's not that we're bereft of trying to it's not that we have to figure out how to please the Supreme Lord on our own. We've got the information. But now through Srila Prabhupada and through the association of other devotees, this is steps. And now we just have to bring our mind to the function that we're participating in, because as we spoke earlier, the mind has that tendency to jump all over the place. But so to bring the mind and the body together in the process or the worship of the Supreme Lord, and that's something that we can do anywhere and everywhere. Anywhere, perhaps after you leave here, the situation that you're in, might not have that many devotees nearby, but still you're not bereft. None of us are ever bereft under what circumstances, even now this COVID imposition on us, we're not bereft, because there's ways to associate with devotees through the internet. There's ways that we can hear and chant on our own. And if we can practice those things, Srila Prabhupada gave us through one of his books called The Nectar of Devotion, he gave us 5 very important things that are that anybody can execute in any circumstance on how to fortify our Krishna consciousness. So do we have any participants from cyberspace who want to mention one of those things, or the 5 most important elements for executing devotional service that you remember from the Nectar of Devotion? You can do one of them. Hearing, thank you, you're right. Hearing Shravanam. We can hear about the glories of the Lord. We can always, there may be some lecture or some kirtan, some singing or whatever. We can hear about the glories of the Lord. Anyone else want to come up with anything else from the 5 most important activities for executing devotional service? Either the ones that are present physically or the ones that are in cyberspace?
Chanting.
Yay, thanks. Chanting. So we hear and then we repeat, or the chanting, or we repeat the holy name. That connects us, especially if we're conscious of what we're doing. It also, we can be chanting and be totally disconnected. But the point, again, to be connected with the process. And yes, Rukmini, what would you like to say?
Remembering.
Remembering, that's true too. Yes, because, and especially we've had the opportunity to read. So then today, later on, you can say, I still remember what Haritoshani means. And I can tell somebody, or I can tell, maybe there'll be something else that you might have heard, especially if you hear, it'll become way more solidified if you repeat it. Yes, That's totally true. Thanks, Rukmini. And also I'm thinking of those 5, of the 64 items for devotional service, there's 5. One is to live in a holy place.
On the temple.
Yeah, yes,
At the Bhakti Yoga retreat.
at the Bhakti Yoga retreat. So don't leave, okay? She needs a new roommate. But also, if by circumstance you need to go on, we need to make our own space. We need to make a sacred space in our own area. And that's possible too, simply just like this, a sacred space. And that sacred space will facilitate our chanting, and it will facilitate our remembering too, because you'll remember, oh yeah, this house actually does belong to Gorni Tai. It is their mercy that we're here, and Srila Prabhupada's here. And so we can remember that every single time that we come, or whatever, or in our own sacred space. So hearing, worshiping the deity, we can worship the deity. It might not have to be in that particular form. It could be in the form of a picture. Chanting the holy names or Sankirtan, glorifying the Lord like that. And now I'm forgetting the last 2 that I wanted to talk about. Hearing, chanting, living in a sacred space, chanting the holy name, worshiping the deities. Yeah, and we got a couple more.
So that's 4.
Yeah, that's a,
Hearing, chanting, worshiping, living in a holy place.
and remembering. Remembering is one of them, but not in this particular list. But anyway, there are many things to remember. Eating prasadam, that's a really good one too, right? Because it purifies us. Yes, offering our food. So there are things that we can do in any circumstance to fortify, enliven, press our reset button, our own personal reset button, because life has its way of presenting distractions. And that way we can do our best to become absorbed in the function of pleasing the Supreme Lord. And interestingly enough, as one repeatedly does that, for example, perhaps one's life is already very full of so many activities, et cetera, and you might think, well, I might have time to listen to one lecture if it's just like 30 minutes or whatever. You know, I might have time to do this, but I don't have time to do too many things because I got to do this. But if you start to make that endeavor, you'll see how Krishna, because Krishna is the controller of time, he's the time factor, he's the controller. He'll open up newer and newer ideas. He'll give you newer inspiration. He'll give you new possibilities. And you'll see, oh, if I just do this at this time, oh, I didn't realize I could do that, or oh, that, or he'll allow that chance. So Srila Prabhupada says his last sentence in the purport is, thus sanctified by thought and action, one is able to realize the Supreme Lord by the process of a pilgrim's journey. So that's Srila Prabhupada's way of always encouraging us. He's always encourages, just do your best to absorb your mind and your activities and your remembrances and the thought of the Lord. And this is our personal pilgrim's journey back home, back to Godhead. And Krishna, being pleased by that simple endeavor, will reciprocate way more proportionately than our endeavor to please him. So that's another benediction. There's a saying that if you take one step towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards you. So that's a good deal. So that's a good deal. So let's keep taking our little steps. There are little baby steps, our little endeavors, and Krishna will provide his unlimited causeless mercy and gradually cleanse the heart. Cleanse the heart means the consciousness, cleanse the mind, the consciousness, so that we'll see more and more ways that we can please the Lord. So any discussion or comments or even corrections, because I'm sure there are a few things that could be corrected. Anything that anyone would like to add, present or in cyberspace? Things that might have triggered a remembrance, or perhaps even your own experience on any of these things? I remember when I was, yes, I already forgot your name.
Casey.
Casey? Casey?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Casey, what would you like to say?
I was just thinking about what you said about Krishna being the controller of time,
Hmm,
because it used to be like almost impossible for me to chant like half a round. Like that was the only, like waking up early was so hard.
yeah, yeah.
I remember my goal was to chant one, and
Yeah.
I couldn't even do that. And I asked Erica, like, what else can I do? It was like half, and even that was difficult. And now, I mean, yesterday I chanted 12.
Whoa,
Really easy.
yeah,
So-
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Thank you for sharing that, because it's so true for all of us. You know, it might be in a different specific circumstance, might be different, but Krishna is the controller of time. And you took that one step, so he gave you 10 steps more worth of time that you could figure out that, you know, how to do it. That's really nice. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, he is the controller of time. And he doing that all the time, you know, sometimes the time goes so quickly and sometimes it drags on so slowly. You think, when is that lady gonna stop talking so I can eat breakfast or whatever? You know, go so slowly or whatever, you know, whatever the circumstance is, you know, and he's doing that all the time. Hot time. Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to share anything or add anything or contribute or?
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'd like to share how much I enjoyed this class. Like, it was so engaging for me. Like, maybe sometimes I do have the experience of, oh, when's the person gonna stop talking? We're gonna have prashadam. I didn't have the experience at
Hare
all.
Krishna.
I was so engaged. I love the way they use metaphors, analogies, humor. I just loved it. Thank you.
Before
Please
I-
give class more.
Before I came here, I prayed to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know anything. Actually, I actually was going to share with you at a certain point that I had prepared for the class. You'll be surprised. And I had a whole different class prepared. You know what I mean? In the mind, I'll go
Well, you
here
can
and that.
stop now.
Yeah. I can't remember it. It fell out that one of those multi holes in the back of my head. But now I forgot. But I prayed to Srila Prabhupada, I'm just your instrument. And that's all of us. We're all just his instruments. So if we just be his instrument, then somehow or other, it's quite amazing. It's somehow or other that one person can say something to so many people, and people hear different aspects of it that they need to hear or that they're particularly attracted to. The person is just the instrument of the Lord's mercy. Would you like to add anything, Melanie?
I can ask a question.
Only easy ones are accepted at this time.
No, I
Yes.
was thinking like when you were describing Vidura and Vidura leaving behind everything, he didn't have even his water bottle with him. And there's something so attractive about that.
Yeah,
You know, there is something very, very attractive. And I often think about it. Like
yes.
for many years, I've been thinking about it. Like just leaving everything and just walk. And but there is, like, when is it realistic and what is realistic? Even if the desire is there, even if the attraction is there, some people may not even have attraction or desire for this kind of thing. But I say I do,
Yes.
and it's true for me. I do.
Yeah.
I always did. Practically from the time I was a child, I was doing things like that.
Yeah.
But like, okay, is it what is pleasing to
Yeah.
Hari Devotional?
Yeah.
Is it like giving up everything, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
where is it? Where is the centerpiece
Yeah.
of Hari
Yeah.
Devotional?
Yeah. It's very good point and very good question and very important to understand. Yeah, I understand. Yes, yeah. Because oftentimes it can be, especially as life has its way of getting tougher, as days go by. The younger you are, life goes smoothly, but then your consciousness develops and your responsibilities develops, and then perhaps you get married, and then you have a family, and then there's a hard time making financial ends meet, and this and that, or the family isn't as cooperative or as whatever friendly as there's clashes even within the small family, and you think, yuck, I want out of here. You know what I mean? So so it might seem attractive for various reasons that are not the essential reason. And so, okay. Back in the days, thousands of years ago, when we spoke briefly about how society was organized for progressive advancement, there is a recommendation in that progressive advancement that at a certain point, not when you're 34 years old, or not when you're 16, or not right after your business failed or whatever, but when you're in your 50s or older, when your family has grown up, when they're able to take care of themselves, when the things are in place, they had certain measures for things to be in place, then it was recommended that one leave everything and focus in on their spiritual progress. And there's many, many stories throughout the Bhagavatam, as you read, of great personalities, kings who had huge, huge kingdoms and huge responsibilities and huge treasuries and everything, etc. And at a certain point they say, okay, time for my son to take charge, he'll be the king and I'm out of here. So that was in place. He became the king and he would go off to the forest to focus in, because he understood that material achievements aren't the be all and end all. But I don't want to lose the opportunity of this human form of life. I want to take advantage of it. Okay, so Malini's point, how do you know when is the right time? We're always kind of looking for answers like that. We want like to be driving down the road and see the billboard. Malini, it's time to leave now. We always want big signs to make sure. And so we're driving down the road, we're driving down I-75 and we see a big billboard that says, Malini, yes, it's time to leave and go now. And then you think, oh, there must be coincidence. No, maybe that's a message for me. We kind of want the messages to be like black and white like that, but oftentimes they don't come just like that. They don't come that way. But let's go to the point of renunciation, the point, not the act of it. The point of renunciation is to give up the attitude of a self-centered attitude that I'm doing everything for my own pleasure. And now I want to do things for the pleasure of the Lord. So for sure, that's what she's thinking. So how that works out might not be exactly in the textbook of the ancient societies, especially in this day of Kali, in this age of Kali Yuga, as things are more progressed. But that attitude, nobody's stopping any of us from changing our attitude from a self-centered attitude of what's comfortable for me to an attitude of what will please the Supreme Lord the most, or how can I act to please the Supreme Lord the most. Now, we're all doing that to some extent, even right now, but just like the time factor example, it might seem like I couldn't possibly do any more at this particular point in my life to please the Lord, because, whatever limitations we might impose on ourselves. But actually, with that desire in the heart, praying that it's pure, Krishna will allow, Srila Prabhupada will give us more and more understanding how to do that. And it might even be by staying right here and facilitating people to come over. It might be that. So I don't have an answer that's going to give you a black and white answer that's going to give you a signpost that says, yeah, it's time, or no, it's not time. But it's something that one needs to do with deep prayer and consulting the scriptures, and also consulting the devotees. Whenever we have sometimes when you get a question from people and you don't really have a good answer, you say, well, that depends on 3 factors: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. It's a great answer because it applies to so many things. Guru, what's the teachings of the spiritual master? What's the teachings of the Shastra and how to apply them? And what are the what's the advice from people who know you well, who are spiritually advanced also? Not just anybody who knows you well, but people who are spiritually inclined and spiritually advanced. Well, why not take one more step? Why not take another little step? Why not take another step before it's like totally, before you totally just walk out the door and never come back? So that's my attempt at an answer, unless anyone else. Gajendra, do you have anything you'd like to add to that by any chance in the world?
Yes, how did you know?
I didn't, but I was hoping, so thanks.
Well, I was really, my ears were really perking up. I was feeling really keen on this section. And of course, as you're saying, there's no obvious, billboard, there's no strict formula that lays out a timetable that applies to every single person. It's definitely not like that at all. I think it really relates to some extent, and it is a very personal thing, how somebody might feel called in their relationship to Krishna and wanting to really feel that they're being who they are as part and parcel of serving Krishna, pleasing Guru and Krishna. And so when it comes to that, I feel that as if somebody is really more mature, there may be, especially for people maybe in the West, when you look at who you are, what the reality of this is, that, we're not well suited to being, say, Bhajananandi type, Babajis. This is not our nature. And I think at least those Gaudiya Vaishnavas of us who sort of look to Srila Prabhupada as a teacher, but also an example, that even coming into our stage of life where we're older, it's not the ordinary sort of ashram, I'm going to stop gratifying my gross senses and try to pull back from that and try to shift the mind more toward spiritual life. But I think more maturely, like when I look at Srila Prabhupada, I look at somebody who his whole life was preparing, and just shy of the age of 70, did a huge step onto the Jaladuta, to step way out of a comfort zone, or just, la-di-da and radha-dharma. I mean, what a nice setup. You're like living in the radha-dharma time. And you step onto that to have heart attacks, and shortly after you're in New York City in cold, freezing winter. Well, what's that all about? It's not like he was giving up his spiritual life. What he was doing was an incredibly devotional thing that was really caring very much about other people's spiritual life. It's not just an extension of I'm selfish and I'm going to extend my material selfishness to other people, to engage, to make money and things like that, but I'm merely going to extend my spiritual consciousness to helping other people's spiritual consciousness. And I'm willing to engage more and face more and sacrifice more. And so I really think it's a mature stage when one can, I don't mean to say maturing stage like, despairing actual saints that are called to set an example of, solitude or something. But I do think to be able to engage sensually, to interact with people, to near the end is a really powerful way, if one really wants to spread Chaitanya's mission, to be engaged. And so, I look at it that way, that actually coming into your older age is a time to bring your wisdom and your experience and your knowledge, to really employ it. in serving other people's spiritual life in a way that pleases Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Many good points. And one point that you touched upon, especially in this Western society, it's very challenging. It's not conducive, avadut stage of life. Because anyway, doesn't mean that it can't be done or anything. I know you don't mean avadut, but
No, I don't mean that. I really mean preaching.
Yes.
Giving the comfort.
Yeah.
Preaching.
yeah, which is what you're doing. So extension of that is also very good, Any other comments or questions? Because if not, we will beg your leave at this particular point.
Yeah.
Damayanti? Yes, dear.
Hare Krishna, thank you
Hare
so much. Thank you for the class. Well, I was thinking about the desire, like sometimes I have this like material frustration or pain or suffering from like material life, and I just get this overwhelming feeling like I just want to give everything up and super duper Krishna conscious. And but like it's kind of like mode of passion, and like it's coming from a place of like irritation and challenge, and I don't know if it feels like it's related to like giving up everything or like surrender, and I think that's like it's not the worst feeling. Like I just want like let's double up and let's triple up on serving Prabhupada, and like let's just make every only thing that matters, and but it's almost like I'm doing it to like avoid things where I need to grow, and I mean I think there's like a happy middle road, and yeah, I just wanted to say that sometimes I want this big dramatic transformation, and I want these and I'm really attracted to like transformation, and like this choice was made, like not that's it, this is happening, like this dramatic thing, and instead but I'm not attracted to like boring steady practice,
Yeah. You and all the rest of us also too. Krishna's so kind too, because in the past, in the history of our movement, in the past, when people would get to that point of, I really want to give up everything, and oftentimes they did, and it caused so much pain and so much disruption because it was premature, because for the moment we could muster up the energy to renounce everything, and then as the days went by and we were looking, and it was so disruptive. So we are warned of premature, the how it's improper for the premature and the renunciation based on I'm thinking that will release me from this uncomfortable situation, therefore let me scoot out of here. That's quite irresponsible. And even if one did that, then Krishna has a way of making sure that we actually get the purification we need, and it might be a much more difficult type of purification. Whereas if we stay in the, sorry to use the word boring, repetitive process, and try to make it so that we're not bored by it, that purification is much more steady and sure. It's particularly, she rolled her eyes when I said that. I saw her.
Not at you, just
Yeah, I know, it's okay. I'm an eye roller too. Yes, Molly.
I was just thinking about what you just said, like as long as it's to avoid something, it's a desire for liberation.
Yeah.
And Bhakti Yoga is free from desire for liberation.
Yeah.
So as long as any renunciation or like any big change is born of, I don't like what I have, I don't like what I see, I have problems with my children, or so many. We have seen so much of that, and the motivation is material.
Yes,
It needs to be spiritual.
right,
For-
right.
for-
For-
and
for
it
it to
needs to be
endure.
renunciation. Like, I love being with my children. I love being with family life. Like, Lord Chaitanya or so many, and they love their life. It's not that they didn't like their life. They love their life, but they knew. And even Srila Prabhupada, he was saying, no, I don't want to take sannyas.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
He didn't say, oh yes, whew, that's so good. I can finally get rid of my wife.
point.
And it's not what it is.
Yes.
Real renunciation means to give up something that we like.
yeah,
If it's, what renunciation is there, it's like, oh, wow, like there is stool here. And let me let go of the stool and then so renounce.
yeah, yeah, Yeah.
Renunciation it cannot be that.
yeah, right. It
cannot
has
do
to be, it has to be from the pure motivation. And that-
and not from a reactivity of anything.
Right, and yeah, and the result of that, when it's immature, when it's done on those bases, is always very painful,
So
very
painful.
painful. For you and other people and so many,
And for the
And-
society.
and for the society,
makes so
because
much
it
out of the
can't be
society.
maintained.
Yeah.
It can't be maintained.
Yeah.
And that's why our whole process is a process, gradually building up our spiritual strength, and
It cannot be maintained because it's born of sense gratification, not born of like my senses are satisfied. It's born of my senses are not satisfied, so I'm going to reject everything.
yeah,
And so what's happened is that later on, the desire for sense gratification didn't disappear.
yeah.
It just
It raises its ugly head again.
to again get entangled
Yes.
and untangle everybody else
Yes.
and like untangle society
Yes,
at the same time.
yes. So we're supposed to end classes on, or anything on a,
Anytime you want, we can continue as
well, I was gonna say, we want to end on a sweet note, so we're gonna bring it back to something sweet. So I'm gonna read the verse again, okay? So we'll have positive thoughts in our brain. So here's the translation, text 19, first chapter of the third canto. While so traversing the earth, he simply performed duties to please the Supreme Lord Hari. His occupation was pure and independent. He was constantly sanctified by taking his bath in holy places, although he was in the dress of a mendicant and had no hairdressing nor a bed on which to lie. Thus, he always was unseen by his various relatives. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyas Chakripas. Thank you for your patience and tolerance in so many things.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachalini